Hey guys, can we put into the chat box for everybody for the questions, the Army team chat? Hello?
We can hear.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We can.
Hello everybody, thanks for joining. This is Mark DeGance. We're going to give it a couple more minutes here to allow others to join as it just hit 11. So after a couple minutes passed, we will begin the presentation. Thanks for joining everybody. We still have a couple entering, so we'll wait and give it about another minute. All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. I'll be your host today. My name is Mark DeGance. This meeting here that we're about to conduct is a ServiceNow part of our Army webinar series on enterprise case management. It is a module or a particular area within ServiceNow, and we'd like to demonstrate, highlight, and talk about today how we can transform the customer experience with customer workflows. Really quickly, I'll give myself an introduction. My name is Mark DeGance. I'm a senior account executive over here at ServiceNow. I help support the Army team as well as the PEO accounts across the entire Army. Prior to joining ServiceNow, I was actually in a Gartner consulting capacity for the Army as well. So it's been a great transition over here to ServiceNow and what we call the system of action. Sarush, can you give everybody an introduction, and then we'll go down the list, Kevin, and then Dan.
Yes, thanks, Mark. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Sarush Masula. I'm a solution consultant with ServiceNow, and I work with Mark to support the Army accounts that he mentioned.
Good morning. It's Kevin Adler. I support Sarush and Mark with the Army, and I focus on customer workflows, which include customer service management and field service management, which we will be discussing today.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Reinhardt. I'm a principal architect here at ServiceNow across the DoD.
Perfect. And just a really quick house cleaning item for everybody online here. We do want to make this interactive. If you open up your chat, we do have an armyteam@servicenow.com, an email address. So if you have any questions during this presentation, please do not be shy. Email those over and we will have a Q&A area. Really quickly here today, everybody, we'd like to talk about the agenda, right? Right now, number one is ServiceNow Army Tech Talk series. We'd then like to go over an overview of ServiceNow for some who have no idea what ServiceNow is and others that do, and then specifically customer service management. Then we'd like to talk about CSM, as what we call it, customer service management core concepts, and we will actually be doing a live demonstration. After the live demonstration today, we will be doing a Q&A. So with that being said, why don't we get to the next slide? This is our Army Tech Talk series. It's every Thursday. Please, if you know of anybody that would like to attend, or if you think that there would be somebody that you'd want to attend, please pass this along. We're doing this once again every Thursday. If we can, please, let's go to the next slide. You know, really what we're here today to talk about is ServiceNow and some of the big Army modernization efforts, right? And there's a lot of them, but there's several that are really kind of top of mind. And when we think about talent and culture, right, you know, we're really at a crossroads within the Army where we have people who are indoctrinated and who have been doing a way of doing business for 20 or 30 years, and we have millennials joining the Army right now. And there's really a need and a change for talent and culture. How can we make these business processes better? How can we sit here and modernize? Also, operational readiness, right? How do we sit here and get the best possible tools, resources into the soldiers' hands as possible so that we can maintain, you know, overmatch against our adversaries? And as well, you know, modernization across the board. And really, what does that mean? You know, how can we sit here and bring in the Army into a 21st century digital experience versus what's happening now? So really, I'd like to kind of tie back how ServiceNow, and hopefully what we'll be able to talk about today, how we can help and address these things. If we can get through to the next slide, please. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what ServiceNow is, when you sit here and you think about your particular unit, your organization, any organization is going to be comprised of many different components. You're going to have IT, you're going to have operations, you're going to have an infrastructure, you're going to have HR, you're going to have finance. And each one of these individuals in these organizations are going to touch different, you know, systems of records, if you will. And a lot of these systems of records don't talk to one another. And there's tons of applications and processes within these. And a lot of the soldiers nowadays, or civilians who support the Army, are having to sit here and toggle between multiple different applications just to get their job done. And when we think about this and have that in our frame of mind, if you think about, you know, how do we sit here and give a 21st century experience? How can we sit here and we have now computers in our palms, right, with our phones? How can we sit here and bring a mobile experience to get work done more efficiently? Generally, if you try to go from those operational system of records on the bottom and you try to go straight up to the top for a mobile experience, something generally breaks, right? You know, it just doesn't work. Or if I sit here and I want a sleek web interface so that people can sit here and have visibility throughout the entire organization, generally, if you try to go from the bottom directly to the top, something breaks. It just doesn't work. Over here at ServiceNow, really we are that platform that can sit on top of all of these operational systems of record and create a true single pane of glass which delivers workflows across the organizations, whether they're siloed systems or not, creating a seamless enterprise system of action. That is what ServiceNow is at its fundamental core. If we could please go to the next slide. What does this really mean for organizations? You know, right now I've had many years of supporting the Army, and something that resonates from down all the way to the top is a lack of visibility. How do we sit here and we get visibility across the organization? A lot of organizations are sitting there and having to transport or export everything to, Excel files. It's not real-time visibility. It creates a ton of manual interaction. It's a back and forth process. And then once again, where is something in the process? Most people have no idea because it's sitting in an email and it's 300 emails down and the person was out for 2 or 3 days. And then it's time consuming because all of a sudden everyone has to stop what they're doing to get back on the same page, hop on meetings because they have no idea where anything is, which is really a loss of productivity and a really poor experience. And when we think about what ServiceNow brings to the table is that real-time transparency, right? I have the visibility throughout the organization. I have the workflow automation. How can we sit here and take the mundane tasks, automate those so that, civilians and soldiers can get the work that they actually need to get done, streamline communication, which obviously saves time, gains productivity, and is a good experience. And when we think about these millennials joining the Army now, they have things like Uber. I want a taxi. It's a very easy way and process to do that. If I sit here and I want to buy something, I can go to Amazon. And when people sit here and they go into the Army in particular, and they have to sit here and realize the processes and the systems they have to use, it's almost like going back in time 30 or 40 years. So how can we sit here and how can we change this better for the future? So what I'd like to do is then pass this along to Kevin. Hopefully that's a good overview for everybody at a high level of what ServiceNow is and can bring to the table.
Fantastic. And we'll actually pass it over to Dan.
Excellent. Thanks very much. So the topic of today's conversation is really around customer workflows. And as Mark was describing the ServiceNow platform and how we automate work, if we think about automating specific units of work and think about it in the context of a customer workflow, you can think about capabilities like case management and field service and being able to manage entities, whether those are bases, whether those are units, whatever kind of organizational structure we want to manage in terms of how they are initiating and requesting work. And I think the important differentiator to realize from a customer workflow perspective, and for all of the workflows that ServiceNow has productized on the platform, all of these applications share a common set of capabilities in the Now platform for government. So if you think about leveraging customer service management along with employee workflows and IT workflows, it is all operating on the same platform with the same data model and the same architecture. So that's a very valuable proposition as you start to address larger use cases within the Army. But if I think about the traditional challenge that we see and what customer workflows really solves for, typically in any organization, at the top, I have folks who are attempting to initiate units of work, whether that is a request to fix something on-base housing, whether that is planning a fielding mission for installation of tactical radios or tactical equipment. Regardless of what type of request is being initiated, oftentimes there's multiple ways to do it. There's multiple systems and departments that you have to interact with. And so the whole concept of ServiceNow as it applies to this diagram is that we want to simplify the engagement from a customer perspective with how these folks are initiating work. We want to simplify the execution of that work across various departments and silos and organizations. And we want to simplify and automate that work as it traverses different systems of record that the Army might have in place. So if I overlay what ServiceNow does on top of this diagram, there's effectively 3 things that we provide. The first thing that ServiceNow provides is a system of action. And what we mean by that is the ability to digitize workflow. So the routing, the assignment, the processing, and the integration with systems that are required to resolve units of work are something that the platform does very well. So from an Army housing perspective, if I think about how I take a family member's request to fix a broken lock in on-base housing, how do I route that? How do I assign it out through the DPW? How do I get the boots on the ground to arrive at that location, fix that lock, and then get a satisfaction survey from that soldier's family member? That type of process automation and integration is something that ServiceNow orchestrates very well. On top of that, we also want to be able to understand from a metrics perspective how we're executing on all of those requests. What is the real-time status of all of the work that is in the system? And in order to do that, we can leverage the out-of-the-box reporting and dashboarding capabilities that ServiceNow provides. And we'll see some of that in the demonstrations that we're going to walk through. The last component we need to overlay on this challenge is really a system of engagement. And that system of engagement is effectively one single interface where folks can go to initiate units of work. So think about a self-service portal. Whether I'm initiating a request to fix a broken lock on my on-base housing, or I'm initiating a request to perform a fielding mission, I want one consolidated place where I can go to initiate work, view the current status of the work that I have requested, and it basically provides as a level of transparency and visibility and consolidates the complexity of having to understand where I need to go to initiate certain pieces of work. So that's the very high level picture of what ServiceNow does and what customer workflows does exceptionally well. If I drill into this at another level of detail and we think about what customer workflows actually does, customer workflows provides an end-to-end holistic capability to resolve units of work. So on the left, I have customers. And customer is a relatively nebulous term, right? It could be a soldier, it could be a family member of a soldier, it could be a vendor, a partner, a machine, a piece of equipment. But basically, that customer is initiating some unit of work. And there needs to be an engagement layer in that system of engagement to allow them to initiate that work in a consolidated place. But the real question is, once a unit of work is initiated, how is it routed, tasked, assigned, and executed from an automation perspective to resolve that unit of work? So that moves into the middle component. I might have an agent or a mobile worker or somebody in a particular department who is reviewing those cases, reviewing those units of work, and determining how to respond and how to execute on those units of work. But on the right-hand side, I might also have other departments or other streams of work that need to be executed to resolve a particular request type. And those units of work might depend on systems of record in the back end to pull and push data bidirectionally in order to resolve that work. And the work might even require the dispatch of someone out in the field, the boots on the ground from a field service perspective, to correct that issue with on-base housing, to install that tactical radio out in the field. So the real challenge that customer workflows solves for is how I coordinate and execute end-to-end all of those units of work across the multiple departments, organizations, systems of record, and even out into the field. So if I was going to define the four strengths that customer workflows offers on the ServiceNow platform, strength number one is complex case management. And what we mean by that, as an example, is perhaps somebody on an Army base is reporting a suspicious activity. And if you think about that unit of work, it appears somebody else might be driving here, but let me switch back. So if you think about that particular use case, somebody is reporting suspicious activity on an Army base. They could be a soldier, they could be a family member of a soldier, they could be a visitor on the Army base. But the question is, how do they interact to initiate that unit of work? And that's typically done through a level of customer engagement that customer workflows provides. So they might go to a self-service portal and initiate that work. They might submit a chat via MS Teams. They might send an email. They might do it over their phone from a mobile perspective. But once that unit of work is initiated, they might leverage the virtual agent to report it. But at the end of the day, what ServiceNow is effectively doing is it is creating a case out of this particular request. And it is executing all of the subsidiary things that might need to happen to resolve that suspicious alert. So I might create an incident from a case management perspective. I might spawn off an enforcement action from a mission services perspective. If there is emergency support that is needed for this suspicious alert, I might dispatch those folks into the field to address this emergency. And I might also need to collaborate with cross-agency services, maybe the local or state government, and have them get involved. So the the issue of complex case management is how do I orchestrate and manage all of the tasks and workflows that need to happen to resolve a top-level request like a suspicious alert on a base? How do I coordinate the execution of all of the activities needed to handle and proactively resolve that alert? And that's really what complex case management is, and it's what customer workflows provides. The ability to automate, track, report on, and digitize all of the units of work that need to be executed to resolve a particular request. So the second strength that customer workflows provides is the account and customer data model. And what that really means is if you think about servicing entities, let's take the US Army housing example. If I am servicing requests to fix issues with on-base housing and I'm in the command structure, I'm going to want to understand on a base-by-base level what those issues are, what the common problems and challenges are with housing. And I want to be able to roll up and logically report from a 360-degree view perspective and segregate by the bases or by individual units or by organizational structures within the Army. And so what the account and contact data model really does is lets me model the state of the organization, all of the components within the organization, and track cases against those entities. So as I build this out, and if we look at what that looks like from a reporting perspective, if I think about that Army housing use case, and I think about wanting to be able to see the difference between Fort Carson, Fort Huachuca, and Fort Eustis, being able to separate how things are trending, what the cost is to support those different installations from a housing perspective. I want to see what the trending issues are, whether it's mold or broken pipes or other issues. That account and contact data model basically lets me organize my structure or my units and get a very detailed view from a roll-up perspective as to how things are being executed against an organization or a unit. And that's a very valuable structure to have when you're looking at a large organizational entity like the US Army. So the third strength that customer workflows provides is really around field service management. So let's go back to that US Army housing example. If I'm a family member and I report a broken lock or I report mold in my on-base housing, how do I actually execute someone in the field from the DPW to go and fix that particular issue? So field service management allows me to tie together the initial request to do something or fix something with the boots on the ground who are actually going to remedy or rectify that situation. So if I drill into field service management and think about what that actually means, it basically lets me establish control, reduce errors, improve uptime and scheduling. So things like preventative maintenance or planned or recurring maintenance I can automate with field service. It also lets me do an enhanced level of base infrastructure management. You know, I know that every 6 months I need to go out and check these air conditioning units or these HVAC systems and make sure that they're up to snuff and up to speed. Field service management lets me automatically schedule, route, and execute those kinds of tasks. So there's a couple of other capabilities in there in terms of maximizing productivity. How do I intelligently assign and task resources out in the field? You can apply this to a fleet readiness and sustainment use case. How do I make sure that all of my equipment, vehicles are operational and properly maintained? And basically, it lets you also manage inventory. So what parts do I need to execute these particular tasks out in the field? So if I drill down one more level, field service management and customer workflows and the ServiceNow platform is really a singular place for end-to-end field service management. And that doesn't start with dispatching somebody into the field to fix something. That starts with intake from a customer service perspective, that family member reporting a broken lock or mold in their on-base housing. It could start with a project. We're deploying this tactical radio in the field. We need to plan that fielding mission, and then there's a field servicing component that needs to be executed. There's planned maintenance, meaning I have an HVAC unit that I need to inspect every 6 months, and I want a system to automate the recurring task of going out and doing that inspection. And then there's a qualification and scheduling component. So how do I assign the right people who have the right availability, the right skill sets, and the right parts to the work orders that I'm executing in the field? How do I optimize the travel routes of my boots on the ground to make sure that they're effectively executing the jobs that need to be completed? How do I do affinity-based assignments, meaning if I have a couple of field technicians who are very highly skilled at fixing HVAC systems and not very highly skilled at fixing broken locks, how do I have the system automatically determine who should be assigned based on their affinity to complete a set of work based on skills? So there's a lot of components to field service, and it even extends into assets. So if we think about fielding mission management and we think about the end-to-end asset lifecycle, how do I install and deploy an asset? How do I then do the continuous maintenance from a servicing perspective that needs to happen? How do I not only service that asset on a recurring basis, but repair it when it breaks? How do I handle recalls and moving assets in and out of the field? How do I do asset dispositioning? So when do I know when an asset is reaching end of life? How do I take that out of the field? How do I manage hazardous assets or assets that require special dispositioning, like hard drives that might require shredding or scrapping? So there's a lot of components to the field service solution, but the Army has a lot of assets, so we can certainly apply it to a lot of use cases. And the last strength of customer workflows is really the concept of communities. And communities is a capability that we deploy in our self-service portal that allows folks to help each other in resolving issues. So think about soldiers or family members collaborating together to answer common questions, to post documents or ask questions, kind of like an online news bulletin board. The community's capability allows me to do that in the self-service portal. So it encourages customers to network with each other, and that drives a level of case deflection. It reduces the amount of inbound cases that I actually have to process. So with that being said, we have two different live demonstrations that we wanted to show you all today. And let's talk about the first one briefly. So I've been mentioning the US Army housing use case quite often in the PowerPoint. And what I wanted to show is just a high-level demonstration of what we put together to solve for the issue of soldiers or their family members being able to report issues with on-base housing and how we can dispatch and resolve those issues from a field service management perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my mobile phone on my screen, and then I'm going to share my screen. And I will ask you all in a moment if you can see it here. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Let me bring up my mobile device. All right, can you all let me know that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can
good,
see your
Dan.
screen.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the capabilities inherent to the ServiceNow solution is the ability to operate in a browser on a computer, on a laptop, or on a browser on a mobile device. And as Mark was talking about the millennials and the folks who are coming into the Army, they expect to be able to interact with things on their mobile phone. So what I'm looking at here is just a very quick portal that we configured on the ServiceNow platform, and it's meant to address housing support. So I'm authenticated into the self-service portal as a first sergeant. I can search for knowledge content. I can interact with a virtual agent. But basically, I'm going to request some assistance because I have a housing issue. And in that menu in the self-service catalog, I'm going to report a leak or plumbing issue. So the system has automatically rendered the right user interface on my screen here. And perhaps as a first sergeant, I'm submitting this on behalf of a member of my unit or my team, Sergeant Joe Exotic. Because I am authenticated and the system knows who I am, it knows what barracks I'm associated with. So I'll pick barracks 73. I'll type in a short description here, plumbing issue. I might even go so far as to make a first appointment choice, leveraging a calendar or a date picker. And because this is a mobile device, I also have the ability to take advantage of my native capabilities like geolocation or photos on my phone. So I'll go into my photo library here, and as opposed to pictures of my new puppy dog, I will pick a picture of my sink. I will attach that to this particular case type. So overall, an end-to-end mobile experience where as a soldier or a family member, I can submit an issue I have with housing, and I can create a digital version of this request to remedy this housing issue. So as I submit that, I can see a real-time audit trail here. I can see the picture that I attached of my sink. And in a moment, the system is going to execute workflow. The system knows that we can automatically assign this particular work order to the right shop on base. We know what priority this particular work order might need to be assigned at. So we're basically managing the digital intake of all of the issues that are being reported from a housing perspective, and we're intelligently routing and assigning those into the field to be resolved. So let's switch away from this interface. This is the interface for soldiers and their family members to be able to submit issues on base. And let's talk about, from a field service perspective, how we would actually go out, boots on the ground, resolve these particular issues. So for that, I'm going to switch over to our field service application. And again, this is a native mobile application that out of the box lets me manage my work as a member of the DPW or somebody who's boots on the ground. So I'm authenticated here as Kerry. Kerry is on Fort Campbell, and Kerry is able to look at all of his assigned tasks. He's able to look at group tasks. He's able to leverage the geolocation capabilities of his phone to actually look at those tasks and see where they are on a map. We can do things like optimize the travel route between these particular tasks that are assigned. And as Kerry wants to execute on some of these units of work, he can drill into this particular unit of work and accept it. And basically what the system is letting him do is track the amount of time he spends traveling, track the amount of time he spends working, track the parts that he is utilizing, and basically track every aspect of what needs to be done to repair this particular issue. So Kerry might start travel, he might start work, and now as he's executing this work at this particular location, he can do things like use parts from his available inventory. This is depleting his stock. And then at the end of the day, he can mark this particular work order as complete and basically enter in his comments here, and even have the soldier or the family member fill out a survey or give them a digital receipt of what happened. So if I go into the parent work order, it is now closed complete. I can actually collect a digital signature from someone, hit submit, and the system is automatically generating a PDF which details for me on this job, maybe expenses I incurred, as well as the signature. So end-to-end from a field service management perspective, Kerry was able to look up his relevant work orders, go out to those locations, have the right parts and available inventory, track all of the time and parts that he utilized, and really have a fully digital experience to manage these particular work orders out in the field. So there's a couple of other capabilities within the system here that we want to talk about. So from an inventory perspective, we want to understand what inventory Kerry has in the truck. We want to understand what available parts there are. We can even do things like integrate with RFID readers, or I could even leverage the camera of my mobile device to scan a barcode and look up a particular asset as I'm out into the field. So leveraging a mobile device and leveraging all of the native capabilities that exist within that device is a very handy capability. And what we just saw was an end-to-end resolution of submitting a particular housing issue, having that dispatched out into the field, and how field service could actually execute and resolve that particular set of work. So that was a high-level overview of the first demonstration that we wanted to walk through. And I will stop sharing on my phone here, and I'll bring up a second use case, which is a little bit different. But before I do that, let's summarize the dashboarding and the reporting from the base housing use case we just walked through. So we initiated a request, we resolved that request through field service, but what ServiceNow is actually able to do very well from a reporting and dashboarding perspective is show real-time metrics across multiple bases. So here's the first sergeant logged into his dashboard, and he can see the work order performance trends that have happened, how efficient his boots on the ground are at resolving particular cases. But if I am, say, General Perna, and I want a very different view of the world, I can authenticate as General Perna, and I can see a real-time overview of all of my bases that are online, what my individual costs are per base, what particular issues are costing me the most amount of money, what are the trends in terms of plumbing issues, mold remediation, appliance issues, structural issues. So if I want to make financial decisions and allocate money to different bases or different areas of improvement, I need this real-time ability to visualize this data, and I need to have it at different levels. So this goes back to the digitization of work and the account and contact data model, which we're leveraging to represent the different bases that exist in the US Army. And that lets General Perna very specifically select which bases he would like to see, and we can get a real-time visualization of what cases exist in those particular installations. Okay, so with that wrapping up the first demo and the first use case, we want to switch to a more mission-oriented use case out in the field. So we configured this demonstration for PEO C3T. And this particular use case was all about fielding mission management. So if I'm deploying tactical radios or tactical networks into the field, how do I initiate and manage the instantiation of those missions? How do I plan for the training? How do I actually put those assets out into the field? How do I manage my bill of materials or my DD3161 property book record? How do I collect digital signatures? All of that end-to-end capability about fielding mission management was something that we had to address in this demonstration. So this is a self-service portal that I'm showing here, just lightly configured. It is the same concept that we saw on my mobile device, but I'm leveraging my desktop browser. And there's a couple of capabilities in the self-service portal that are important. The first capability is the ability to search for knowledge content. So I can surface any type of knowledge content in the self-service portal. I can rate it. I can provide feedback. This does two things. It provides informational content when it's necessary, and it also can drive a level of case deflection, meaning if I can solve someone's challenge before they initiate a case, I can lower the overall cost of servicing that use case. The second capability that has value within the self-service portal is this concept of a virtual agent. So a virtual agent is an autonomous chatbot that basically understands how to have pre-programmed conversations. And if you think about what you might be able to leverage this for, things like checking the status of a mission or checking the status of a case or reporting a pay discrepancy or requesting leave or searching the knowledge base, these are all programmatic workflows that I can execute with a virtual agent. And again, that lowers my cost of servicing a case because it is being done by software, not by a person. Another value proposition in the self-service portal is this concept of a service catalog. So think about a service catalog as any type of work that I might need to initiate. In the demo we just walked through from a base housing perspective, it was reporting an issue with my housing, whether that's a plumbing leak or mold. In this building management use case, it's creating a new mission or creating a new part request or scheduling a tactical radio installation. So any type of work that I want to instantiate, I can effectively model and create in this self-service portal. And as I walk in to add a new fielding mission, I might be presented with a number of data elements for input. I might pick a unit or UIC that I'm going to deploy this to, what type of installation I'm actually doing, when the proposed start date for this installation is, a short description, a longer description, and I could even add attachments from my desktop, much like we did on the mobile device by taking a picture. Once I submit this particular mission, a similar concept applies as to the demo we saw with base housing. I am executing digital workflow against this particular request. And for this use case, digital workflow might do things like automatically provision the bill of materials and the assets required for this type of mission, a rock drill installation for 3rd Airborne. It might also spin off multiple segments of work for training this particular unit to receive the equipment, acquiring the assets required for this installation, shipping these assets out into the field. This initiate a field service request for someone to actually go do the installation. The digital workflow might also automatically generate a DD3161 property book record, and we'll see that in a second. So if I click into all of the missions that I've created and all the missions that are being managed in this particular instance, and I open up the Dan New Installation mission that I just created, what we're going to see is that workflow has automatically spun off an approval for this particular fielding event. It has spun off multiple service tasks that need to be executed. We need to schedule the installation. We need to do asset provisioning. We need to schedule the training for the unit. All of these different types of work can be automated and managed via workflow. So if you think about what that means, we basically want to automate and be able to track and report on all of these missions, how we're progressing with asset acquisition, with fielding, and with preventative maintenance and servicing of these assets. So as I drill back into this particular mission that we're working on, I want to open up the bill of materials. So as we were in this mission, you saw that there are 57 assets that were automatically assigned to this particular fielding mission. And as I drill into those, you can see we've imported a bunch of assets. And based on the fact this is a rock drill installation, we know these are the parts and components that we need. Another challenge that we had talked about in this case was generating the DD3161, the property book record. And basically, soldiers were hand jamming the data into this form. They were manually signing it and passing it back and forth. So what we have the workflow doing in this case is actually executing an automatic generation of the DD3161 property book record, automatically routing it through DocuSign for digital signature, and then storing it against this fielding mission. So if I change this particular asset to consumed, or I change it to in use, and I save this particular record, what the system is update the audit trail. It is automatically going to generate a DD3161 property book record, and it is going to automatically route that through DocuSign for me to be able to digitally sign it. So here's my DD3161 that has been automatically generated. And if I switch over to my email inbox, you'll see that I just got an email from DocuSign. Please sign this hand receipt. And if I actually click into DocuSign to review this document, we've taken the bill of materials and the assets that were associated with this fielding mission. We've automatically populated the DD3161 form, and we can basically get a digital signature directly from the web and click finish. And once I finish, ServiceNow will grab this DD3161, signed, completed, and attach it directly to that particular fielding mission. So overall, that was an end-to-end automation of scheduling a particular mission, generating the assets, generating the DD3161, generating all of the tasks that might need to be executed from a fielding training perspective. But the last component of this demonstration is really being able to do reporting. And we were talking about the EOC3D. They basically had a number of PMs that rolled up. And the RMD had some challenges doing consolidated reporting against all of the different types of fielding missions that were being executed in the field. So within this self-service portal, I can also click into Rmd Reporting, and I can get a real-time view of all of my missions, where they are currently being fielded in the world with drill down capabilities into the individual states, locations, geographies, even cities. I can get a real-time overview of the open missions by unit or PM. I can even go so far as to dynamically group these by the different types of installations that are happening. So again, every ServiceNow use case seems to follow a similar concept from a customer work perspective. I'm initiating work. I am executing process and automating process to resolve the things that need to be executed, whether that's sending a field service agent or boots on the ground to fix an issue, generating a bill of materials in a DD 3161. And at the end of the day, we have this digital version of the work that we can report on. So I have this real-time insight and visibility into the status of the work that is being executed. So those were the two demonstrations that I wanted to cover. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Adler for him to review some use cases.
Dan, thank you. So let me
really quickly, guys, can I pause for a second?
Go
I
ahead.
got a question in very quickly, and the question is ServiceNow's mobile capability available for GCC customers?
Yeah, Mark, I can answer that question. So it is available. It's going to be available in our upcoming Paris release, which is set to release in federal Q4.
Perfect. So, sorry, Kevin.
Good question. Good question, Mark. And if there's others, feel free to interject. So Dan did an eloquent job of walking through some case management-based demonstrations using customer workflows. This is the chance where we get to talk about other agencies that have had their challenges solved with case management from ServiceNow. This screen articulates the challenge that one of the agencies had vendor and supply chain challenges, and they had basically little insight into the issues and meeting the service level agreements that their groups had to support ordering materials, getting materials distributed to users, and basically the communication was very manual based and consumed lots of time and emails for tracking down orders and delivering goods against those requests for orders. So the good news is that ServiceNow was able to step in with one of our partners and deliver a holistic solution, essentially case management, which streamlined the workflows that this organization used to provide visibility into the status of those requests and then executing those times of requests and delivering them against service level agreements. And as a result, this customer is now estimated to benefit from over a $19 million investment over the next 5 years of savings. Dan also did an eloquent job of walking through the Army demonstration. This is the global housing management solution, which we are very excited about, and did a great job of talking through the simplicity or the frictionless experience that a soldier or a family member would have on their mobile device or on their tablet, searching for resolution, searching for an agent to come out and fix a broken lock, resolve an issue with plumbing or whatever life safety issue it is. The result of deploying this solution will enable the Army to report out much better standings to Congress for their delivery and service for housing issues. And I also like to point out that this solution will leverage ServiceNow's investment with our Impact Level 4 Government Community Cloud. So this will be a 100% cloud-based solution. Will integrate with back-end systems like GFibs and will allow the end user, the family member or soldier, to have a frictionless experience resolving issues around housing and property management. And then finally, there's another at-large agency that we work with in the Department of Defense that modernized their help desks. So they were able to consolidate all of these separate legacy help desk systems and basically replatform them on ServiceNow, which in essence gives that one viewpoint for customers to go at the help desk and resolve any issue and resolve those issues quickly and efficiently using modern tools that work on any device. The advantage for the agency is they're going to, like Dan showed you on the demonstration, have visibility and insight into the types of issues that are being requested and the challenges to solving those requests or issues, so they can eliminate those roadblocks or bottlenecks or potholes into delivering obviously better customer service. So at this time, it's always valuable to open up the phone lines. I think Sharus or Mark, you are going to have some questions from the folks in the audience, and we'll be able to take them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. We do have a question that just also came in. This is a question that soldiers who are in a disconnected environment, does ServiceNow provide mobile offline capability?
So that's a great question. So yes, they can download data into their cache when connected and then take action on it when disconnected from the network. And it works exceptionally great in field service management. So yes.
Great, great. Another question also came in. Are the same ServiceNow capabilities available for on-premise versus in a government community cloud?
So that's a great question. ServiceNow's code base is the same regardless of where it's hosted.
Okay, perfect. Can I integrate my current GOTS applications with ServiceNow?
So Kevin touched on this when he was talking about it, but yes, ServiceNow can integrate with any system of record through APIs.
Okay, perfect. And then this just came in. Give me a second. Is your government, what environment is your government community cloud hosted in?
So
I think that they mean impact level.
Yeah, so again, Kevin touched on this, but ServiceNow's GCC SaaS environment is authorized by the JAB at the FedRAMP High and at DoD Impact Level 4. And so, yeah, so we're in the IL4 and we're in the process of moving to our IL5.
Okay, perfect. As far as with the questions, I believe those were it. If anybody on this call, we can make this interactive at this point. If anyone on this call would either like to raise their hand or has another particular question, please let us know. Now would be the time. Okay, I am not seeing any further questions. With that being said, I believe everybody, we have concluded the case management within ServiceNow and really kind of digitizing workflows in the presentation today. Once again, if there's no other further questions, we would really appreciate and like to take your time. So once again, thank you. So also very quickly, just to note, next week we do not have a session due to the Labor Day weekend. So our next session is September 10th. For those of you just tracking some of these as we're doing this webinar series for the Army. So please note next week is not due to the Labor Day weekend. It will be the September 10th. Once again, everybody, we really appreciate your time. Dan Reinhardt, fantastic job. Sarush, thank you so much. And Kevin, thank you all very much for helping out with this webinar. With that, we'll give you guys and everybody on this line 8 minutes back in your day before everyone has to hop on to their next Zoom or Microsoft Teams meeting. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Anthony had a question. If Dan is still on. Oh. Looks like Anthony left.